Well, hello, faithful listeners. Welcome to Unstable Vitals. I'm Dr. Laura Zibners, and I'm joined by Dr. Adam Brown. And today we have Jared Dashevsky, who is a resident and the manager of the most informative website picking apart what's going on in healthcare today. He actually used the words instability describing what he's trying to do, bring together the cross sections of medicine in simple languages, language that people can understand, and explain it all to us. And what's more exciting is Jared is a resident physician at Mount Sinai, where I spent a few years. And so we have this natural bond. So Adam, we're going to let you talk a little bit today, but mostly it's going to be me and Jared talking about what's wrong with residency, what's right with residency, and what's going on in healthcare today.
Hey, I'm going to jump in there. Hey, I am going to jump in there. But all I'm going to say
I just wanted to set some ground rules.
Okay, all right.
Just boundaries.
Sure. All right.
Hi, Jared. How are you?
Hey,
Good.
Jared.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to see you. It's good to see you again. I mean, we were just talking about this just before we went live. It's been years. I cannot believe it since you and I met, I think, towards the end of COVID. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 2021. I think we first met because you got a wind of Healthcare Huddle and just wanted to talk. And at that time, I said I was going to be a poop doctor as a third-year medical student, but that has since changed as I'm now a third-year resident.
Yes. I mean, that's kind of is being a poop doctor a bit of a shitty life, a shitty residency, or in fellowship, or is it like, you know?
No, I think I know the pay's great as a GI doc. But the fellowship is intense, especially in the New York City area. But I just became more attracted to instability, hence why I'm applying to pulmonary critical care.
Nice lead in. Actually, Sinai, in seriousness, is one of the world's hubs for certain GI diseases. And I know this because I was at Sinai, but when we tried to figure out if we crossed over, it turns out that we did not. Because, Jared, how old were you in 2003?
2008, I think.
Okay, so we did not work together. That's a great disclaimer.
You could have seen him as a pediatrician.
I could have taken care of you.
PZR.
Did you live in New York City?
No, I lived in Philly. I was at CHOP was my hospital.
Okay, you never broke your arm when you were at Rockefeller Center and came in and saw me?
Never. I thought about it. I thought about breaking my arm.
No, see, well, wait a minute. I was at CHOP. I trained at Jefferson, and we went to CHOP for our rotations. And so, Jared, if you were there between 04 and 07 for any reason, it's possible I could have seen
Yeah, maybe we did cross paths.
I mean,
you could have been a snotty kid that I had to take care of.
Yeah, so. I loved being at Sinai. One of the best cases ever was a kid who was attacked by a squirrel over in Central Park.
They're vicious. He was probably feeding
Really?
food.
Yes, I'm dead serious. He came in after a squirrel attack. And I'm like, you know what? This is why I love emergency medicine. Because where else in my life would I ever think today I'm going to care for someone who was attacked by a squirrel? But it's New York City. Anything goes.
That's true. But that can also happen in North Carolina because people eat squirrels.
No, I think you guys have nicer squirrels. You guys just shoot them and eat them up.
Yeah, this is also
it's
true.
An afternoon snack.
Well, listen, hey, here's what we're going to talk about today. So this is, I think, very important. So Jared is currently a resident going into fellowship. We wanted to kind of pick his brain on what is residency life like, what are some of the things that he's hearing with his resident colleagues, and some of the challenges. Is residency itself making the healthcare system unstable? Are there things that need to be done to make residency better? Are there more slots? Are there things that need to be different specialties? Why are people choosing where they're going? So we want to talk about that because, you know, to be a doctor, you have to go through residency, right? So it's and you have to go through medical school. So what are the things that are problems currently in that educational process that are potentially exacerbating the instability in the healthcare system?
And before we go there, just for our non-medical listeners, residency, can we just explain what that is? Jared, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to, basically before you could be like the head honcho and like calling your own shots, you need to, yes, complete the pre-med requisites in college. You need to go through 4 years of medical school. Some schools are making it 3. And then you need to do further training called residency, where basically you work like a dog. You're at the bottom of the totem pole in the hospital chain. And during this 3, 4, 5 year period, you're just learning as much as you can, doing as much as you can. And it's like running 15 miles per hour on that treadmill. and you're just like eating and
fast.
drinking while you're running.
That's
Yeah.
fast. Oh, and I want to just pull one of these, when I was a kid, I walked uphill both ways in the snow, right? Blah, blah, blah. So how many hours a week do you work? Because I'm going to
So
tell you how many hours I worked.
I will say it is the hours we work today, at least in internal medicine, are significantly less than what the old guard was doing a couple
Yeah,
years
we
ago.
were,
It's like
Guard.
we're
we
capped
were
at
80 to 100 when
yeah
I
we're
was
capped
a pediatric resident.
we're capped at 80, and if we work above 80 hours and we have to log our hours, and people see that maybe we work 90, 100 hours in 1 week, then they have to give you like a day, a compliance day, like a day off.
Okay, but
Um,
let's just see. 80 hours is still a lot of hours in
That's
your week.
double full time. That's 2 full-time jobs. I think that's like what people don't realize. Like in medicine, I mean, I've been on the corporate side, right? So like
Yes.
I've been I've been on the business side. So like, in medicine, we're like, 80-hour work week. And immediately what Laura just did is what a lot of doctors did. Is that, well, when I was in residency, I did 80. It's fucked up. Let's just say what it is. It is fucked up, folks. Sorry, I even messed up my camera. Like it's messed
I
up.
once moved into the hospital Monday through Friday because on my orthopedic rotation, I was on call 24 hours a day, 5 days a week.
that's
Yeah,
absurd.
so here's the thing. That's 2 full-time jobs. And then when you take how much money you make in that time period as a resident, like when I'm teaching my business class, right, at UNC. I mean, Laura was one of my students. Like, and
really?
this was
Yeah.
the one class
Oh.
that she missed, by the way.
No, in 2 years, I was getting up in the middle of the night. I was doing the MBA at UNC from Europe. So I'm getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning twice a week to go to school. And Adam's my professor. And in that period of time, one class I slept through. And it was, what's the difference between a doctor and an ACP and a nurse? And I slept through it. I was horrified. My husband thought it was the funniest thing ever. And I was like, oh my God, Adam, I'm so sorry, because he had power over me then.
She was feeling so bad about it. It was like, Laura, of all the classes that you could miss, I think the difference between a nurse practitioner and a PA and a doctor. Like, I think you're good on this one. That was good. Now the other ones she shouldn't have missed, and she didn't miss the other ones, and she passed
did.
with high honors. Just by the way, in
That's
that
great.
class. But going back to the point, like when I tell that the class and say, okay, you go to school for 4 years in college, you apply to medical school, hopefully you get in, that's another 4 years. So doing the math, the earliest you essentially can start residency is at 25, 26 years old, for the most part. And so then residency is anywhere from 3 to 5 years, depending on what service that you're doing, whether it's emergency medicine 3 or 4 years, or pediatrics 3 years, or something like that, all the way up to like surgery. It can be 5 or 6 years. Then you do fellowship. If you're going to do a subspecialty, you are doing a fellowship. So your life is completely consumed in this education process, lower wage earning, all the way into your early 30s. And going to the salaries, and we'll talk about this in a second, but you have to, when you tell people, oh, well, you're a resident, you make an okay salary, that's more than minimum wage. But then when you start to do the math and realize that, oh, we can work 80 hours a week, that is then when you're saying, and there's no overtime pay, there's none of those things. That's the piece where I sometimes wish we would get out of the one-upsmanship in the medical field of like, hey, this is what we did and this is how it should be done, into
I'm never
realizing
letting go of that. I'm just
it's pretty
I'm never letting go.
inhumane, and and the opportunity cost is bad, Laura. So
So the shift there, let's talk about that shift happened as I was finishing my fellowship, and then I came on as an attending at Sinai, and I did the residence rotation, and I would just be like, what do you mean you have to have 12 hours off between shifts? Like, what? That made my life.
How is it now? How is it now, Jared? Tell us.
It still isn't
more.
good. So I was with my brother over the weekend, and he's like, Jared, you're always complaining about money. He's like, but you make good money. Like, you're making more than me. And I said, yeah, but I'm working twice as much as you. I maybe get one weekend, if I'm lucky, off per month. I also I have a 1-year-old daughter. Like I'm allowed to complain. I think pay has gotten better. At least in New York City, programs are very competitive with each other. So I think everyone tries to follow like NYP, like Columbia. Like if they increase their salary for their residents, everyone else like tries to do it. If they offer a new benefit, everyone else tries to keep up. But at the same time, like, sure, you're increasing salary. You're still getting paid technically. I think it's like $20 or $30 an hour. But people are in debt from medical school and college. Like medical school and college tuition is considerably higher than it was back when the older folks were going through training.
You mean me?
I didn't mention any names.
So here's the numbers. So average debt coming out of medical school, $250,000 average. Okay, that's the average. The average resident salary across the country is $62,000 to $63,000 a year. Okay, and when you say that to people, you're like, oh, $62,000, $63,000, that's not horrible. But then when you start to say, okay, at 80 hours a week with 2 weeks off a year for vacation, then you start to say maybe 3 weeks off. Then you say, whoa. Now you've got compounding interest, compounding debt over that $250,000. The opportunity cost of being in residency when you could be, you're a 4-year graduate, went to a medical school, you have a doctorate, you'd likely, even if you didn't do residency, you could likely be working in a field that would be making more money than as a resident. So when you start doing those calculations, you start to realize, holy shit, like this is a really bad deal, while you're in residency.
And we talked about, lengthening residency, shortening residency. I've heard some talk about shortening it. We could lengthen it and take those hours in half, but you do it for twice as long. And then the opportunity cost, you're coming out at the age of 40.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's why I don't do that math, Adam. I just avoid thinking about that. But, like it was tough being in medical school and like barely not making like I made some money with Healthcare Huddle, but it was like I almost felt like embarrassed because all my friends from college are working in these finance jobs in the city, going out every weekend, going on vacation, and I'm like I'm still like asking my parents to help me out with like laundry that week, and it's nice to make money in residency, of course, but still now I have a daughter, I'm married, and still my finance friends, they're maxing out their 401ks or 403bs. I don't even get my 403b match. Like I'm just trying to get by.
But Jared, who are they going to call when they are at the worst moment of their life?
It's me. And you know what? I've already received some of the calls, and it feels pretty baller when you help someone out.
Yeah, it does.
I've gotten people earlier appointments with like well-known clinicians, and it feels good to help folks out.
That's why we do it.
Exactly.
It is why we do it. I mean, it's still, to be clear, it's a very noble profession and one which I'm very glad I'm a doctor. Now, I mean, as you both know, I'm not doing doctoring as much, full time, like treating patients in the emergency department. But there's no part of my life and job right now that I'm not using the skills and the knowledge and the things. I mean, Laura, even, with your job, starting a women's health company or starting a drug delivery device company, you are every day using your medical knowledge and personal skills and interactions. I mean, although sometimes they're a little bit wonky, but whatever.
Yeah, okay, I'm a little off. We got that. I also use the fact that I'm an unfiltered 53-year-old woman. But no, being a doctor gives you credibility in a way, and it gives you respect in a way that I promise you, as much as you're sacrificing now, I don't necessarily use my pediatric emergency medicine skills in a women's healthcare startup, but the fact that I have a doctorate and a couple of masters means I can speak to people in a way that, people do respect doctors for the most part, not everyone.
We hear the stories and we see the Twitter feeds and things like that where people are not respecting doctors, and we see people, we will not use her name because we don't want to be sued, but an actress who likes to come out with all of these different type of what you should do for your vagina, what you should do for healthiness, and that sort of stuff. It's Laura's favorite person. We do not speak her name.
Egg in your vagina. Your vagina is better off without a jade egg.
I concur.
I don't want a candle that smells like anyone's vagina and explodes in my living room. I just don't. That's dangerous. exploding vagina
despite
candles.
that, I still think
Yeah.
the majority of people do respect physicians and the healthcare professions. Hey, I wanted to ask you though. We've talked a little bit about residency. What are some of the problems that you're seeing in residency? And I mean, you can start back from even how you get into residency, but what are some of the things that you're seeing right now that you think are making our system not better?
That's a great question. So I guess I'll start with medical school when you're like going through the whole process where, you send applications to dozens of schools. It's not free. You have to pay maybe $400, $500 just like send your applications out to the world. You need to pay for your board exams to be released. Like there's all these fees, which again makes things even more unaffordable. The only good thing now is that everything's like still virtual interview wise. So you're not spending that money to travel, which is good. But again, like if you did have to travel, I can't even like picture how it was done before. Like when you guys were applying to fellowship and interviewing.
Well, this is interesting because I just wrote a letter of recommendation for an amazing woman who's at UNC doing the MBA MD program. She wants to do radiology, and many of those are still in person. But I'm telling you, what was
really?
different for me was the letter of recommendation I had to upload to. It wasn't like I had to send it to 50 different schools. I had to upload it to this platform, but that took me 3 hours because I had to make it not A4. I had to make it US letter, and that's a skill set that was really beyond me. But I did think it was cool to kind of see what the process is from at least the letter of recommendation side. It's different, right? It's just different.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's interesting. But I just had to submit my letters of rec, like, and it's a whole process because you upload it, and for some reason in 2025 they say it's going to take 5 days for this letter of recommendation to process. Like, what do you mean? It's going to take 5? Are you like, it's someone like going line by line and making sure it's formatted correctly? It's crazy. But so the application process to residency is annoying and it sucks money out some more. Then you get to residency, where of course the biggest issue right now I feel is like residents who are overworked and underpaid. And I do think at the end of the day, like getting, like people say, oh, you're doing this because it's a passion and it shouldn't be tied to money. But at the end of the day, like if you get paid well, you feel very rewarded, and I'm sure it will quell like a lot of grievances that people have. So, for example, one thing that some New York City programs are doing is that when you're on like Jeopardy or sick call, which is terrible because you just get, especially in big programs like you just get caught in all the time. You get paid like an increased rate for being called in, which is nice because you get called at 5 a.m. saying, hey, Jared, you need to cover the shift tomorrow, like in the ICU, and you're like, oh, great. But you know that at the end of the day, you're going to get paid at least somewhat more, which is nice. But this is not universal, and I'm sure folks at underfunded programs feel the pressure of pay much more than folks in New York City schools who get paid relatively well. But again, New York City's.
But yeah, I mean, you mentioned though, I think you kind of went from, okay, you apply for all these programs in medical school, but there's a process called the match in between then. And that, yeah, so like explain what that is and how, I mean, explain kind of the feeling of that week. And then you get into a program at Mount Sinai, but what happens to the others that don't get into those programs? I mean, explain that process and how that works.
Okay, so there's this rank match process, which is the same as it is for sororities. So if you went
How do you know that?
I went to college, and I just know that they had to list their top sororities, and the sororities had to list their top college students that they wanted. So essentially, in medical school, you do your interviews, and I think by February, you basically create this list, 1 to infinity, of your top programs, right? So for me, it was like Mount Sinai, blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, these programs are ranking their medical students, like the top medical students they want in their programs. And so through this algorithm that whoever created it won the Nobel Prize, I'm pretty sure. This algorithm starts running, and it starts matching programs with the medical students based off of like how each one ranked each other. And on for me, it was like March 15th, sometime in mid-March. On that Monday, you get an email. You feel your phone vibrate. You literally feel like you went into a cardiac arrest. You had a sinus pause. Like your heart stops. You read it, and it just tells you if you matched. So you get the notification.
It's so screwy, right? Like it's like, I mean, they know where you've gone. They know where you got in. Like, and they're just gonna say like, "Hey, fun fact, you matched."
This is so different because when I was a little doctor, you found out like 2 days or the day before if you didn't match. So if you didn't get a phone call, and we all had to go to school to get our envelopes. And if you didn't get a call 2 days before for the scramble, then you knew you'd match somewhere, but then you didn't know where. And then you showed up and you had your envelope and you had to all open it together.
Interesting.
So maybe there was a sense of, what do you think is which one's better? Because at least we were surrounded by all our friends.
Well, wait. So you get an email that says like, "Hey, you've matched," but you don't know where. And then 3 or 4 days pass, and then what happens? And then we'll compare.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't match, if you get an email saying sorry you didn't match, then you enter this process called, I think, the scramble.
The scramble.
Where you are working with your like dean of your medical school, and you're trying to find any open spots at different programs. Sometimes you need to switch your career trajectory altogether. So I have friends who wanted to go into anesthesia, which is very competitive, and the dean was like, you may end up in like North Dakota, which isn't bad, but for someone who's lived in New York City, their whole life.
Let's not call out North Dakota. I'm sure they get, really interesting cases.
So they pivoted.
Airways.
They had to pivot specialties, which is tough. And then that Friday, that's when you get another email saying, "Congrats, you're going here. Sorry if you don't want to go here, but this is where you're going. And if you don't want to go here, good luck. That's
Do you
your
all
problem."
sit together? Did you get together with your friends like I was with all my buddies and we all did it at the same time? Do you guys like lock yourself in your bathroom?
No, so maybe some people lock themselves in the bathroom, but our medical school had like a whole party where everyone opened it up at the same time. Which talk about anxiety to get to where you wanted to be.
The process was fairly similar. Like mine and Laura's process, we're not that far apart. So there were some similarities between like you get a call or you get notification that you matched and then that's it. And then 3 or 4 days pass. Then they had at our school, everybody and their families came and sat in an auditorium, right? And they call your name up to the front. You'd walk to the front, you'd get an envelope, and then some people would choose to go back to their seat and open it quietly. Some people would like open it right then and go crazy. Some people that they would open it and they would just walk right back. Like even that process. Okay, like it's horrible because you truly saw in that moment multiple people who like. My number 1 and 2, which was between University of Maryland, Baltimore, and Jefferson and Philly, and I got in Philly, and I really, if it was 1 or 2, I didn't really care. I really, really wanted either of them, and so and I went to Jefferson, but like there were people who just their families had gone to the schools. There's legacy, or they really had always wanted to go to Duke, or they had always wanted to go to like name your school, and they didn't get there, or they had to scramble into something and they got some rando kind of position that they really didn't want. It's so bad. And then if they were a couple, we had people that were like husband, wives, or partners. One ended up in like Booger Bottom, North Carolina, and one ended up in like, New York. And it's like, shit, what do we do now?
We go to Booger Bottom.
Or you live separately. Like it is a pretty, lack
did
of
they,
autonomy process.
but
you know,
don't they
we'll just
still
say.
try to, can't you do a couples match? Because back when I was a little doctor, we
Yeah,
did
you could
couples
do a
match.
couples match, but it really doesn't guarantee things. I have a friend who got married last year. Her husband doesn't work in medicine. I think they're like finance, and she ended up on the West Coast, and he's still here because he couldn't
my
just like quit
God.
his. Yeah, it's awful, and it's the same process for fellowship. So here I am, with wife and daughter, like I didn't apply outside of New York City because I'm like, I'm not even going to risk it. Like I'd rather pivot careers than having to be separated and being California, down south, even Boston. Like I just applied to New York City schools.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other piece, though, is, I mean, you made the decision, okay, I'm not going to apply anywhere else except within New York City. The nice thing about being in the New York City, New Jersey, kind of even Philly, there's a hell of a lot of programs there.
Yeah,
but
there's
if
a lot.
you are in a place like, if you are in a place like Booker Bottom, if you're in a, you know, let's say Atlanta, or
It's
you're
my
in
new favorite place in the world.
you like that? That's where my dad
I get a
grew up.
T-shirt saying I've been to Booger Bottom.
Yeah, well, actually, my dad grew up in Back Swamp, North Carolina, which is not a lot better. Like,
Is it
it's
really
not the
called
front
Back
swamp.
Swamp?
Oh yeah, it's called Back Swamp. In
Was
Duplin
that
County,
like
North
you had to
Carolina.
be rich to live in Front Swamp?
No one was rich around there. Nobody. That if you had running water, you were in Front Swamp. If you're like my dad, you had no running water. Seriously, you didn't.
That was
you were
Back
in Back Swamp. Yeah. So anyway, like but I think what we're teasing out here is that, there's this whole huge long kind of process of getting into medical school, going to medical school, then getting into residency, and then this match process is just can be pretty inhumane. Doesn't really kind of focus on the human, and this is all to be into medicine, and then to get into that, like you were saying, making a low wage for working 80 plus hours a week with very low to no benefits, while all the rest of the world is kind of like that have graduate degrees are kind of chugging along and doing much, much better. I mean, there's a huge sacrifice there.
100%. And it's funny, like you were talking about, like everyone, like some people went up on stage and they cheered. Some people looked sad. But at the end of the day, come July 1st, everyone's just going to be miserable. Maybe some people are less miserable, but like you're just going to be miserable
July
at
1st.
the place you wanted.
Call out July 1st to our American audience. That's the day you do not want to get sick. And why is that, Jared? What happens on July 1st?
It's turnover day. That's when the new residents start, where they're staffing the ED, the medicine floors, the ICU, which arguably I've heard different thoughts about July 1st, because I worked July 1st. I was like the senior, and I had to like oversee everyone
I had
at night.
appendicitis on July 1st. I'll tell you that story in a
Well, my
second,
wife
but
gave
go
birth
ahead.
on July 4th, three days later, last year, and I was like looking at the PGY
The
titles
roster.
on the bottom. I'm like, PGY 1? I'm like, get out of here.
I ran my first code on July 1st because I went from intern to second year.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't worry, pediatrics, no one codes.
Oh my God. Famous last words.
Yeah. No. I had appendicitis. Went to Jefferson. The surgeon, Mike Weinstein. I had done operations and stuff like that with when I was on surgical rotations. He was head of trauma, but I had an intern assigned to me after the surgery who was a pediatric intern rotating on surgery. And here I am in the and I'm having some pain, and she decides to write for 2 milligrams of morphine in a 50 cc bag over a 2-hour time period. And she okay, for those that don't know, that is like the dose of a 20 kilo 45 pound kid. I was a solid 200 like at the time, and so like I'm laying there, and it's like this drip of just nausea that's being infused. And I finally rang the nurse. I was like, hey, can you call the intern back? And I brought her to, I sat her down. I was like, hey, I know this is your very first day in the hospital, but I want to educate you. Like, the dose is 0.1 per kilo per blah, 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 for morphine. And then I said, and I don't really want morphine. Just give me Toradol and Zofran. That's all I want. Like, I don't want narcotics. Just give me Toradol and Zofran and get me the fuck out of this hospital.
Yeah.
Please. So anyway, that was the only negative that happened to me on July 1st.
That's hysterical.
So yeah, I mean, so like it's there's all this transition that happens, and it's as you say, like it's bad for everyone that starts on July 1st. But like, what do you think would make it better? I mean, we talked about all this process, but like, what would make residency better in your opinion?
I think pay would be for me, I'm speaking personally. Like, I would like to be paid at least more than, or on par or more than the APPs who are working alongside of me.
That's
You
nurse
want to explain
practitioners
what
and
that?
PAs.
So, yeah.
Right. So these are so, and I think we need to clarify. So as a resident, you can make, excuse me, your own decisions, but that's under the kind of responsibility of an attending physician. And then APPs are also doing the same thing, but these are people who took alternative pathways, so nurse practitioners, advanced care practitioners. They're also doing the same autonomous decision making under the same attending, but they're being paid more than you.
Right. And they get better benefits. And like, I work with APPs who are my age, and sometimes I'll leave the hospital and I see someone driving around in a BMW, and I'm like, how did that happen? So, it would just be nice, like, for that parity, especially since we went through all this training in medical school and working countless hours in the hospital. So I think pay for me is one of the biggest things. I will say, I think IM folks maybe have it a bit easier than like or specialty folks like ortho, maybe even like EM, ENT, just because there's so many of us. And I think one of the benefits of like having like a big internal medicine program is like you like trauma bond, right? Like you make really close friends, like going through this shitty period together, but also like it's fun. Like I'm not going to hate on residency this whole time. Like I do think residency is very, very fun. Like you are a doctor, you are making decisions, you are helping people, you're like using all this clinical knowledge to like, care for people. You're making tough decisions, navigating goals of care conversations. It's really cool. It's very cool. But again, if you don't feel like you're being rewarded appropriately for doing all this, it's kind of demoralizing, I would say.
Do people still go on fluid rounds after work?
Fluid rounds? I don't have. Some people do, not me. I just come home and sleep. Say hi to my daughter and sleep.
So do you think, so you focused a lot on pay, and I think, I mean, you said you qualified it by saying personally, but you have a wife, kid at home, and you're different.
I'm
stage
very different, yeah.
In life. I can see how that would contribute to burnout. We're talking about like the number of hours that you're doing contributing to burnout. Are there other things within residency, or I use the burnout term, but like, are there other things within residency that you think are contributing to a toxic work environment or
sure.
burnout? What are some of those things?
Yeah. So, through Healthcare Huddle, I hear a lot from other residents at programs across the country. And I think one of the most common themes is just like lack of support from like admin and superiors. Like when residents are voicing concerns, like they want to be heard and they want to see something's being done. For example, if you're like a third year resident and you're spending most of your day having to like draw labs or place IVs on patients because nurses couldn't get it, or there's something in the note that says patients are hard sticks, so no one tries, and they just escalate right to the resident. Like that's not a task. That's not like a high value task. Trainees should be doing. Like trainees should be operating at like the top of where they need to be. So like doing low level stuff like that. Sorry, not low level stuff that's not in their responsibility. It contributes to burnout, and it just gets in the way of other high value tasks that need to be done. Like I know for sure I've spent hours, just placing IVs, drawing labs on like successive patients. And meanwhile, I had like a goals of care discussion with families that had to be delayed. And it's like really no one could have gotten that stuff. So that's just one example, but there's a plethora of tasks that I think are like the responsibility falls under different employees and staff. and when it gets escalated to the resident, it's kind of just like a punch in the gut, like, ugh.
Do you think that's carryover from years ago when residents were considered scut monkeys? Do you think that's just a cultural thing? Like, why?
Yeah, I think it could be a culture thing. I think because a lot of us use ultrasounds to like place the IVs, it's just like, oh, if they're using the ultrasound, there's no chance in hell they're going to miss this, and like they're going to get it 100%, which is great, but you got to find the ultrasound. You have to get the ultrasound. You have to bring it over. You have to set it up. It's a task that it's like a 20-minute task that could be done in 2 seconds by a nurse who does this like in and out, in and out, in and out.
Or even an IV tech, right? That there is
Even
such
IV
a need
yeah,
in
yeah.
some hospitals that somebody's just super specialized. That's all they do is go around the hospital placing the lines. That's a better use of that. Having somebody like that in the hospital would take that burden off
Exactly.
you.
And you can go on Reddit and you could see all like the complaints, being like, does your program like offer like these techs who are just drawing blood, who are just placing IVs? And some programs are like, yeah, we complained about it, and our program like hired someone, versus others are like, no, it's our job. And
Laura, Laura brings up something I think is important here too, around kind of describing the resident as a scut monkey, and that's one thing I wanted to get into with you, is that there is this culture within medicine of, if my time was really bad, I want your time to be really bad, and it's infused with mama nurses eating their young. It's infused into doctors eating their young, and it just perpetuates. Is this bullying? Is it abuse? Is it a culture that is because it is hard? It's a hazing type of culture.
Or well,
Yeah.
let me jump in and give you the opposite view, and then you can vote which one of the parents you like better, okay? What about the viewpoint that, I've said to people, look, it was horrible, but I know that I have it within me to wake up, walk into a room, do something really hard, and turn around and walk right back out and go to sleep, because it was drilled into me because of the way I was trained. So which one of your mom and dads do you like better?
both.
Okay.
Good answer.
So I would say there is like this brutal culture, right? That's like, oh, I had to do it, so you're going to do it. Especially like intern years, like that's when you're just the task rabbit, doing the consults, doing all the notes. It's tough, and it's miserable, and I think it's not a good culture, right? So I don't want to support it, but I will say there's no quicker way to learn how the system flows and functions than being that task rabbit, and having to figure stuff out in real time. And of course, like, you always have a senior resident who's helping you out. But like placing consults, it's not a fun thing to do, but you need to learn how to do it. You need to learn how to present a patient, what's the question, navigating patient transport, navigating the complex system when it comes to like patient discharge. Like, you're going to fly through that discharge med rec. Think again, like, you have no idea where this patient's going, how dangerous it is just to like not review something. And so like there's a lot of small tasks which are very frustrating and annoying and like just energy draining to deal with as like that first year resident. But once you finish that first year, like, you really know how the system is flowing, what to expect, and how to train others.
But that's different. What I'm getting at is, like, there is something very important about knowing the jobs, roles, responsibilities, intricacies of the system. Like, that is a critical, I think, need that residents need to understand, that doctors need to understand. I think it makes you a better doctor as well, because you know what other people and pieces of the puzzle are doing and why they're all critical. I think where I'm getting more to is that notion of truly hazing, belittling, bullying. I saw it so frequently, and it wasn't tolerated broadly, but there were certainly times that I saw, like, one of our surgical residents who was just vicious to people and belittling because she had a position of power, and she over the residents. She didn't have a position of power over the attendings, but she was going to take her position and make everyone below it. Her name was Tara. I will not say her last name, but I remember her vividly 20 something years ago. of how she would treat people. I saw attendings swat and slap doctors, or throw things within a surgical suite. I saw nurses belittle or come out of a room and talk to the rest of the nurses about how horrible the tech was or the nurse was. I saw that type of thing, and that's what I'm getting at, is that the culture that happens in corporate culture, but there's a difference in corporate culture where there's an HR function, there are kind of rules of the road, and it feels like in medicine we aren't equipped, or do we know any of those things actually exist to be somewhat protective.
What's HR?
Yeah, exactly. Right?
No, I'm kidding.
Like, I mean,
It's heart rate.
I've had heart rate. Yeah, I mean, I've had doctors come to me who have documented disabilities and have said, like, I just need an accommodation for something very simple, like a text-to-speech thing, or I need extra time to see certain number of patients in clinic because of a reading disability, or someone who has a disability with walking who has who's like, I need to have a place where I can, I don't know, I can't, where it's not only accessible by steps. Like I need a wheelchair access.
Yeah.
And I've had doctors talk to me about these things before, and they had no idea that, number one, under the ADA, this is required, to have reasonable accommodations. But number two, they had no way of understanding even how to navigate it. And so that's where I'm getting at. Yeah. It's like, does that need to change, that kind of awareness and that onboarding to residents to know what their rights are and know what's acceptable and not?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think this stuff is still pervasive, and I think it's dependent on specialty. Surgery is going to be more like that since it's really hierarchical. You're in a high stress environment. Like the stress is just going to cause people to lash out. My wife is very big on Reddit, and so she's like on the I am resident thread, and so she'll see stories and she'll read them to me. I'm like, that's brutal. Just belittling first year residents, yelling at them, even the drama that goes on with nurses, like belittling new residents, right? So it is brutal. And it's funny because, sorry, that's not funny, but a lot of the stuff,
We'll make it funny.
A lot of the innovation that comes in medicine or just healthcare is in general, it's just like following what other industries do. Right. So like if other industries have like a robust HR pathway where you know how to escalate things if something happens, that's all that needs to be done for, residents. And I do feel residents are very much like overlooked and not listened to. Maybe they're heard, but they're definitely not listened to. And it's different though, because I feel like in medical school, as soon as someone voiced a complaint, they had like a whole team addressing it, and there was an email train that says like how they're addressing this issue, how like the quality improvement is going to be tracked, how it's going to be measured. But maybe that's because we were paying tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be there. Yeah. On the flip side, in residency, we're costing the hospital a lot of money. So I don't know, but I do think.
Oh no. Let me clarify. Residents get paid by Medicare program. Under hospitals make money on. Sorry, hospitals actually. Yeah. So it's about 100 to 110 to 120, depending on the place that a hospital gets, $1,000 that a hospital gets per resident. And while the billing of the resident is less, and they still have to have a attending signature, there's a big unit of production, as you know, that residents do in hospital. Laura, shall we switch gears a bit and talk about Healthcare Huddle?
Well, I was just going to ask, how do you find time for that on top of this?
It's been tough. In medical school...
Tell us where it started.
The whole thing. All right, so the impetus or the inception, I got a master's in healthcare systems engineering from Lehigh University. Up until that master's, I was very naive about the healthcare system, U.S. healthcare system, because my experience with it was okay. Like I grew up in like a like a middle upper class suburb. Like I always had access to healthcare, so I didn't think anything of it. But then this program exposed how inefficient the system is, how inequitable it is. Learn about all the processes that take place, how procedures, physicians are reimbursed, and it was really exciting. And I really enjoyed it. So when I started medical school the following year, I really wanted to talk about it with my peers, but none of my peers knew anything about the healthcare system. They knew the Krebs cycle, right? They knew organic chemistry, but they didn't know how insurance worked. They didn't know how physicians got paid. And I think, Adam, you said this to me once, but like medicine's like the only field where you go into it not knowing how you're actually going to make money.
I was I was on a call the other day for something financial, and they were saying, well, everyone here has negotiated a salary. And I thought, I've never negotiated a salary.
Yeah, exactly. So I really wanted to talk about this with my peers. And my thesis was that if everyone wants to be the best physician possible, yes, you need to know how to treat what's impacting the patient like at the bedside, but you also need to know what's impacting the patient far from the bedside, right? How is policy impacting the patient? How is digital health impacting the patient? How are drug prices impacting the patient? And so when I explored why my peers, weren't aware or didn't know much about the health system, it came down to there's not enough time to learn about it. If there was enough time, it's very jargon heavy. Even though medicine's jargon heavy, this is like a whole different type of lingo. So I created this weekly newsletter back in 2019, end of 2019, called Healthcare Huddle, using the word like huddle, like a quick 5-minute huddle before the week starts, just to catch you up to date of what's happening in healthcare, like what you need to know as a physician. And over, I think we're coming up on six years maybe now. Yeah. It's really proliferated. So now there's like 30,000 subscribers. There's like a paid membership. I make money off of it. I've launched courses, all with the goal of keeping the physician, someone like me, up to date on the healthcare system, because we do not, for 1 second, really learn about this in medical school nor residency. Like I'm asking my attendings to teach me about billing. How am I going to be billing once I graduate? If I'm moonlighting, how am I billing? Like, tell me about RVUs. Tell me about
CPTs.
CPTs.
My course, Jared.
I'll join your course.
My class.
And so now, like, Healthcare Huddle is like a twice weekly newsletter. I'm building courses. Where do I have time for it? I've been doing it for 6 years now, so I have a very robust system, and I'm very big on efficiency. Like, I try to streamline my whole process. Before I had a kid, I was like waking up 1-2 hours before my shift started just to like crank out content and like organize for the week. Now with a kid, they're waking up when I wake up, or I'm waking up when they wake up. So
yeah, welcome to parenthood. You can set your alarm for an hour before your child normally wakes, and they will wake up when you do. You can set it for 3 hours before they wake up, and they will sense it. I tried this game myself because I wanted to read books again, and my son would just appear at my shoulder, and I'd be like, "What? It's 4 a.m."
Yeah, how are you waking up? So now I'm doing it when my daughter goes to sleep. That's when like my wife and I will just do our work, and I think it could be sustainable. We'll see, but I'm having fun doing it.
Has it protected you? Well, let me just say a comment first. I mean, I love Healthcare Huddle. It is actually really, really good, digestible commentary. And I've been, I think, a member of it for 3 or 4 years, and so really have enjoyed it. And I think, you said something earlier, and I just want to play off on it a bit, is that, yeah, as doctors, we don't get any background of medicine. And when I've said to a university before, you need to teach doctors about the business of medicine, oh, they don't need to know accounting and finance. I'm like, you're not getting it. You're asking a doctor to invest $300,000 and a lot of their years of their life into a business, into themselves. They have no concept of what the industry really is. They know how to the Krebs cycle, they know how to treat disease, but they don't know how the money is made. They don't know the complexity of the insurance system and what they're going to be asked to be a part of, these peer-to-peer conversations to get things approved. They don't understand the regulatory space. And like when I'm talking to people about the business of healthcare, I'm not talking about how to do back office processing. I'm talking about like you're going to have an attending or supervisor at some point in time saying you need to document better. You're going to need to know why. And you're also going to need to know what's compliant and what's not compliant in that process. And so like, so that you're not pissed off and saying like, well, why do they keep asking me about this? Why do I keep having to do all these different things? It's because you want a job and you want to get paid and for the care that and it's not just a transaction between seeing a patient and walking out the door and everything's taken care of. No, you need to understand that so you can advocate for yourself. So that's that point, that comment. But you've done a really nice job in Healthcare Huddle of kind of letting people in to that world and to that knowledge. And you have not just physicians. I've seen nurses comment. You have a lot of other people that are commenting on it. The question that I was going to ask, though, is has that kept you sane throughout this whole training process of knowing that there's a different world out there and also tapping into a different level of creativity? And has that in some ways prevented a significant amount of burnout because you have this other kind of creative outlet?
I think, yeah, for sure. I love doing it. Again, it is that extra creative outlet where I don't, like, if I'm feeling particularly exhausted from a week in residency, it is very cool to be able to like read something about, I'm going to use Change Healthcare for an example because that's just on my mind. Read something about Change Healthcare, being like, you know what? I really don't know much about how Change Healthcare functions and like where's money flowing through all of it. And then you read about it and you learn like, oh, this is cool. And then you write about it and you can like consolidate this information in a very simple way to help educate all of your peers. And it's really cool. And especially when you get feedback, et cetera. Sometimes like on my Google SEO, I see like the Change Healthcare article goes up, up, and up. And people have taken screenshots of graphics I've posted in the article. And they're at like a conference like, I'm sending this to you because it says Healthcare Huddle at the bottom. Like, yeah, that's my graphic.
That's mine. That's mine.
mine.
Yeah,
No
thanks
need
for
for
sending
that.
this to me. Thanks for sending me to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's being creative, which is tough to do when you're in like a very demanding profession. That aspect of creativity 100% prevents burnout, at least for me. The one issue with it though is that, yeah, I'm being exposed to things we weren't taught in medical school, in residency. You're learning how the money flows in healthcare. And I think kind of to your point, like if you understand how money flows, you kind of can understand why things are the way that they are.
Exactly.
Because if you just follow the money and you see
Follow
why
the money.
the incumbents are staying incumbent, why certain professions aren't getting paid more than others or other specialties, which that could be a little bit demoralizing. But my goal is to really educate my peers on this aspect of follow the money. This is what's happening in like the business of healthcare. And then they can gain that insight and, better advocate for themselves, for their patients, et cetera.
No, it's one thing I do say to my business school students who are in medicine, but also residents and also medical students. And I've written about this before, is that, when we were all applying for medical school, in college, we had to do all of these different things. It wasn't just be smart. It was like, solve world hunger and all of these other type of issues and things that kind of made us cool nerds. It was like, what are the things that get into sports? And then something happens in medical school, and then especially happens in residency, is we wind down all those things and we just start becoming a doctor. And I think that is one of the most dangerous things for doctors when it becomes a burnout, is because we forget our personhood and who we are, and we become like, our name changes to doctor in front of it, and then our personhood becomes enmeshed within the profession. And what we have to recognize, I believe, is that we are so much more than that, because we are humans. We have interests. And if you wind down all those other interests, then you're exposing yourself to a lot of heartache and problem if medicine doesn't work out, or if it becomes really challenging, or if you lose a job because a contract changes, or you aren't the fastest documenter or the fastest clinician, but still a really good clinician. Like, all of those things kind of happen. So I really applaud you for keeping Healthcare Huddle up. And just as a plug, folks, check out his website, Healthcare Huddle. It's an excellent, excellent read. It's a phenomenal newsletter. You will be smarter because you checked into it. So please make sure you do it. I mean, we've got to wrap this up. So, okay, I'll ask you my last question. And then, Laura, you wrap us up, if that's cool with you.
That's cool.
Jared, I'm assuming we're all assuming the healthcare system is unstable. What is the most unstable thing that you see today about our healthcare system, and what do you do to solve it?
Ooh, I don't know if I have solutions, but I think right now the most unstable part of the health system will be like the insurance space. Whether you have these huge incumbents like United Healthcare, Cigna, that are, being gatekeepers to needed care, or it's like on the government side with like Medicaid and all these policies that are going to strip millions of people from their Medicaid insurance without having like a backup plan. Like, where are these patients who are now uninsured going to go for primary care services or basic medical needs? They're going to go to the emergency department. Are hospitals going to receive more funding to staff the emergency department or make them bigger? No, absolutely not. So I think the insurance space is a mess, and it was made a mess just inherent in how our insurance system started back in the 1930s, 1940s, where it was like employer sponsored, and then money became involved, and it's just a very complex, convoluted system that needs to be fixed. How to fix it? There's of course many different choices. I don't think there's going to be one single right choice. One's just going to be less worse than the other.
Okay, so you have a 1-year-old daughter. Let's say one day she says, 20 years from now, Daddy, I want to be a doctor. What's one solution that you would like to see placed into the medical system before she goes to medical school?
Ooh, that's a great question. One like issue in medical school or in medicine that wants solved. Okay. From my standpoint, as someone who's been documenting, been doing a lot of admin work, I would love to see the admin burden on physicians to be near zero. And whether artificial intelligence will help us with this, whether it's policy changes on what we need to document, I think that would help prevent or reduce burnout and bring physicians back to the field that they desired, just to like treat the patient with their clinical knowledge.
Well, Jared, that was so well said that I'm really sorry you were 8 years old when I was an attending at Mount Sinai, because we never got to work together because you were not allowed into medical school yet. I wish we had worked together. But
I wish I were smarter.
This has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate your insights. Adam, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to be I'm just very grateful for not only your friendship and your collaboration and also being here today. Just such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just so excited to see where you go, where everything else that you're doing outside of medicine goes to, because you truly are making the medical world and the healthcare world better with your insights. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
So here's Jared making healthcare a little less unstable, while Adam and I remain as unstable as ever.
Yes, absolutely.
With that,
so I guess, Laura,
that's it.
until next time, we really appreciate your time. You can always follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You can find our podcasts on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you get your podcasts. And so we really appreciate your time today. And follow us and like us. All right? Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Unstable Vitals. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us for more unfiltered conversations on the pulse of healthcare. Connect with us on LinkedIn or visit unstablevitals.com to stay in the loop. And don't forget, real change starts with real talk. See you next time.